Cam, I saw a report about something that James Palmer might have written, former NFL Network, current Bleacher Report, saying that, it seems to be from the people he's talking to that Todd Monken's offense really fits Deshaun Watson. And I brought it up with Tone, and Tone kind of rolled his eyes, because as much as he likes to troll Shedeur fans, he doesn't want to see Deshaun Watson start the season, and neither do I. Now, you can remain objective. I have to give my opinion on it, but what the
There is a locker room in Berea, Ohio, where two quarterbacks are getting dressed in silence, and neither one of them knows if he'll still be wearing that jersey when the lights come on in September. That's the reality inside the Cleveland Browns right now. No headlines needed, no hot takes required. Just two men, one job, and a fan base that has been holding its breath for years, waiting for someone, anyone, to finally give them a reason to stop bracing for disappointment. For months, the noise around Shedeur Sanders has been deafening, critics calling him overhyped, analysts calling him a project, even strangers online mocking his workout videos, saying things like, a 12-year-old could lift more than that. It was a cheap shot, and it stuck, because that's what happens to young quarterbacks trying to find their footing in this league. Every move gets dissected. Every rep gets graded in real time by people who've never stepped on an NFL practice field in their lives. And Shedeur Sanders has had to live under that microscope since the moment he put on a Browns uniform. But something changed this offseason. Not loudly, not with a press conference or a viral moment. It changed quietly, in practice reps, in film sessions, in the small, consistent improvements that only the people inside the building really notice before the rest of the world catches up. That's where this story starts. Camryn, a sports reporter who has covered this team closely, said something recently that cut right through all the outside noise. She was asked directly, is Deshaun Watson the leader in the clubhouse right now? And her answer wasn't what a lot of people expected. She said yes and no.
Yeah, I think to call him the leader in a clubhouse is fair, but also a little unfair, because I think that he's the veteran there. I think that obviously gives him that upper hand in leadership where over Shedeur, just because he's got that veteran experience of talking to guys and leading guys, and there are guys in that locker room who have watched him. But for Shedeur to take over this job, he just has to continue to show development.
There's a locker room in Berea, Ohio, where two quarterbacks are getting dressed in silence, and neither one of them knows if he'll still be wearing that jersey when the lights come on in September. That's the reality inside the Cleveland Browns right now. No headlines needed, no hot takes required, just two men, one job, and a fan base that has been holding its breath for years, waiting for someone, anyone, to finally give them a reason to stop bracing for disappointment. For months, the noise around Shedeur Sanders has been deafening. Critics calling him overhyped, analysts calling him a project, even strangers online mocking his workout videos, saying things like, a 12-year-old could lift more than that. It was a cheap shot, and it stuck, because that's what happens to young quarterbacks trying to find their footing in this league. Every move gets dissected. Every rep gets graded in real time by people who've never stepped on an NFL practice field in their lives. And Shedeur Sanders has had to live under that microscope since the moment he put on a Browns uniform. But something changed this offseason. Not loudly, not with a press conference or a viral moment. It changed quietly. In practice reps, in film sessions, in the small, consistent improvements that only the people inside the building really notice before the rest of the world catches up. That's where this story starts. Camryn, a sports reporter who has covered this team closely, said something recently that cut right through all the outside noise. She was asked directly, is Deshaun Watson the leader in the clubhouse right now? And her answer wasn't what a lot of people expected. She said yes and no. Yes, because Watson is the veteran. He has the locker room presence. He has guys who have played beside him, who trust him, who look to him, because that's what experience buys you in a football building. That part isn't up for debate. But no, because leadership in the clubhouse and being the best option on Sundays are two very different things. And when it comes to actually winning the job, she said the answer comes down to something much simpler than politics or seniority. It comes down to who continues to develop, Who cleans up the mistakes? Who shows the coaching staff that the growth is real and not just flashes and shorts and no pads during OTAs, where anyone can look good when nobody's allowed to hit them? And that's where the story gets interesting, because for the first time in a long time, the conversation isn't about hype, it's about tape. Shedeur Sanders, according to people around the building, has been doing exactly that, showing accuracy, showing better decision-making, trying to eliminate the hero ball mentality that got him into trouble last season, the forced throws into tight windows, the interceptions that piled up when games got tight and the pressure got loud. Everyone remembers those numbers. Everyone remembers the criticism that came with them. What people don't talk about enough is what came after. The quiet grind, the reps nobody filmed, the corrections nobody posted about, the film sessions that happened long after the cameras left the building. Meanwhile, Deshaun Watson is dealing with a very different kind of pressure. Not the pressure of proving he belongs, but the pressure of history. Multiple seasons in Cleveland, multiple chances, and according to Justice, the pattern hasn't been what a veteran quarterback is supposed to look like. Interceptions, off-target throws, visible discomfort any time the pocket collapsed. Those aren't rookie mistakes. Those are the exact issues that got Cleveland into trouble the last few years. And now, with a brand new offensive line in front of him, the excuses are running out, one by one. Because that offensive line has been completely rebuilt, new pieces, new identity. Todd Monken's offense is supposed to simplify reads, get the ball out fast, and protect whoever is under center from having to hold the ball too long. On paper, that scheme should fit a veteran like Watson perfectly. Quick rhythm throws, timing routes, less improvisation, and that's exactly why James Palmer's report landed the way it did. The idea that the offense was built around Watson's strengths sent a small shockwave through the fan base, because for a lot of people, that felt like the front office quietly picking a side before camp even started.
That's frankly it, and it's a very boring answer, but if you have a guy who you have the ceiling and it's there and you can start to imagine what you might be able to get out of him offensively, if he cleans up things, if he doesn't have to play hero ball and make those mistakes that he was making last year in the interception department, if he can clean that up, make better choices, and show off some of the accuracy that we have seen from him.
But here's the thing about schemes. They don't matter if the man running them can't execute under pressure, and that's the exact question nobody can answer yet. If the protection holds up, Watson has no excuse left. If it doesn't, Shedeur will be tested in a way that could either break him or define him for the rest of his career in this city. That tension right there, that's the whole story of this training camp. And here's the part that stings a little. Camryn Justice was asked directly, point blank, who has to be the one to save this franchise from drafting another quarterback in the first round come 2027. She didn't hesitate. She said that answer almost certainly falls on Shedeur Sanders. Not because Watson is bad, but because the contract, the history, the direction of this franchise, all of it points toward Cleveland needing a long-term answer, and that long-term answer either has to be the 23-year-old they just spent draft capital on, or it has to be somebody who isn't even on the roster yet. Let that sink in for a second. This isn't just about winning a starting job in August. This is about whether Shedeur Sanders becomes the face of this franchise for the next decade, or whether Cleveland is back in the quarterback lottery all over again in 2 years, starting this entire painful cycle from scratch. That's the pressure sitting on his shoulders every single day he steps onto that practice field. And it's not just fan pressure, it's front office pressure too. Andrew Berry built this roster around youth, around 2 straight draft classes designed to set the franchise up for the next decade. Every move he's made, every trade, every free agent signing has been building toward one outcome, finding a stable answer at the most important position in football. If Shedeur Sanders becomes that answer, Berry's entire rebuild gets validated. If he doesn't, the front office is right back in the same uncomfortable spot they've been stuck in for years.
I think it will be Shedeur Sanders making that answer. I have a hard time imagining, barring a spectacular performance, I have a hard time imagining Deshaun Watson continuing to be on this roster long term. The contract and the history, and it just, to me, doesn't track that way. So I think that answer would be made.
Now add another voice into this conversation. Tyvis Powell, a name that carries real weight inside Cleveland's football circles. He came out publicly and made it clear where he stands. He didn't hedge, he didn't play it safe with vague praise. He explained in blunt terms why he believes Shedeur Sanders fits into the Browns' long-term plan, not as a placeholder, not as a project waiting to be replaced in 2 years, but as the actual answer this franchise has been searching for since Baker Mayfield left town. Powell pointed to the way Shedeur processes pressure, the way he's handled the noise, the way his football IQ shows up even in moments when the physical tools are still catching up. That kind of public endorsement from someone connected to the culture of this team doesn't happen by accident. It happens because the people close to the situation are starting to see something the outside world is still arguing about on social media. And it's not just about the quarterback room. There's a documentary, a short film that Shedeur released this offseason, and if you watched it, you know it wasn't a highlight reel. It was heavier than that. The tone was somber, the music matched it. He talked about the haters, sure, everybody expects that part, but he also talked about something more personal, about what he called fake fans, people who disappeared the moment things got hard last season, who weren't there through the struggles, only showed up when things were good. That's a heavy thing for a young player to say publicly, and when Justice was asked about it, her response wasn't dismissive. She said, character development is real. She said maybe going through something uncomfortable, something painful, is exactly what builds the foundation for growth. Maybe the frustration, the criticism, the inconsistency of last season, maybe all of that becomes fuel instead of scar tissue. Because here's the truth about the fan base in Cleveland right now. It's divided. It's tense. Expectations rise, then crash, then rise again, and it creates this cycle where every mistake gets magnified and every good moment gets questioned instead of celebrated. And no position absorbs that tension more than quarterback. Shedeur Sanders knows that better than anyone right now because he's lived it every single day since he arrived. If you're new here, this is exactly the kind of story we dig into every single week, the pressure, the politics, the psychology behind these locker rooms that most fans never get to see. Hit subscribe if you want to be here for the next chapter of this, because trust me, this story is just getting started.
We've kind of seen, I think, what we have needed to see from Deshaun Watson, and if he starts to show some of those things, which we saw a little bit in OTAs when he was pressured, and this is no pads, obviously shorts, and no contact, but you've seen a little bit of him, some of those dirt balls, some of the scrambling that becomes an issue in game. So if you start to see the bad from Deshaun and some more of the good from
Now here's where things get even more complicated, because the quarterback competition isn't the only fire burning in Berea this summer. Cleveland just traded Myles Garrett. Let that sink in too. One of the most dominant defensive players in franchise history. Gone. And in his place, the front office brought in Jared Verse, a talented young pass rusher, but someone who has to replace not just production, but presence. Garrett didn't just get sacks, he changed how offenses game planned. Double teams, chip blocks, entire protection schemes built around neutralizing one man. That kind of impact doesn't just get replaced overnight, and Camryn Justice admitted as much. She said the pass rush, more than any other position group outside quarterback, is where her eyes are locked in this camp. Can this defense sustain success without a true superstar anchoring the front? Nobody knows yet. That answer only comes once the pads go on and the games start counting. And it's not just the pass rush trying to find its new identity. Inside that locker room, veterans like Joe Hayden have carried influence that goes beyond stat sheets. Guys who've been through the highs and lows of this franchise understand exactly what's at stake this season, and they understand the psychological weight sitting on Shedeur's shoulders better than any outside analyst ever could. Then there's Jerry Jeudy, a receiver who needs a rhythm at quarterback just as much as the quarterback needs chemistry with him. Every rep in camp between those two isn't just building a connection on paper, it's building trust that either shows up on Sundays or doesn't. And that trust, more than any single stat, is often the difference between a quarterback who looks good in practice and one who actually wins games in December. There's also a quieter storyline developing around the tight end room, where Harold Fannin Jr. has been building chemistry with whichever quarterback ends up under center. A reliable target over the middle can save a young quarterback from himself, giving him a safety valve when the pocket collapses and the play breaks down. If Shedeur can lean on that connection early in the season, it could be the difference between a rough stretch turning into a spiral, or turning into a lesson he learns from and moves past. And that ties into a bigger picture here. Cleveland has gone young, 2 straight draft classes built around the future, not the present. It's not officially called a rebuild. Teams never like using that word. But if you strip away the label, that's exactly what this is. A retooling around youth, around cost-controlled talent, around building something sustainable instead of chasing one desperate playoff push that burns out in 3 years. So what does success even look like this season? According to Justice, it's not measured in a playoff berth. Realistically, the odds of that happening are extremely low right now. Instead, success looks like this team actually competing, beating teams they're supposed to beat, splitting or sweeping the Steelers, a team Cleveland has struggled with more than fans want to admit, even when Pittsburgh looks vulnerable on paper every single year, with a new coach and new question marks of their own. Success looks like stacking a few more wins than last season, showing visible improvement on tape, giving fans a reason to believe the direction is real, even if the record doesn't scream it yet. And there's one game circled that could define the entire early narrative of this season. Week 2, on the road, in Tampa Bay. If Cleveland isn't going to be a true playoff contender this year, that early test becomes the emotional measuring stick for the whole fan base. Win that game, and suddenly the young core, the new offensive line, the quarterback competition, all of it starts to feel like it's trending in the right direction. Lose it, and the noise, the criticism, the frustration that already surrounds this quarterback room gets even louder, and it spills into every single week that follows. Which brings this whole story back to where it started. 2 quarterbacks, 1 job. A city that has been burned by broken promises at that position for years, going all the way back to names fans would rather forget. And a 23-year-old who has already been through public criticism, public doubt, and now carries the weight of an entire franchise's future on his shoulders, whether he asked for it or not. Shedeur Sanders isn't just fighting for a starting job this August. He's fighting to prove that the growth is real, that last year's struggles build something instead of breaking something, and that when the lights come on in September, the quiet reps, the corrected mistakes, and the accuracy everyone's been waiting to see finally show up when it matters most. Because if Camryn Justice is right, and if Tyvis Powell's public endorsement means anything at all, this isn't really Deshaun Watson's job to lose anymore. It's Shedeur Sanders' job to take, and Cleveland is about to find out, one practice at a time, whether he's finally ready to take it, or whether this becomes just another chapter in a story this city has read too many times.